That iconic banded pattern that we see on tabby cats, it makes them so unique. I've been exploring the beauty and the complexity of this type of fur, and it's what I'm going to teach on today. Hi creatives, my name is Lauren Elizabeth. If you're new here, welcome. I help creatives master colorful acrylic painting technique and also unlock their style in animal art. I also create pet and wildlife commissions and originals. And in this very close-up acrylic painting of a tabby cat, I'll guide you through how to achieve this layered textured look using careful brushstrokes and subtle color transitions in a way that feels expressive and yet still realistic. So I'm going to focus in detail on how exactly I'm using my brush choice, and you'd be surprised you don't actually need that many different brushes, my stroke direction, and my layering process. All right, creatives, let's get to it. All right, so if you'd like to paint this in real time, practice all the brush work and the techniques I'll cover in this tutorial, this real-time step-by-step tutorial will be located in the Pet Portrait Masterclass link down below. Now this is really important. Before I get into step one, my approach for painting an up-close tabby like this will be very different than if I'm painting a distant, far-away tabby where you can't make out much detail. So using a size 1 round brush, a relatively small detail brush, I'm going to use lines, okay? Lines to fill in the most dominant stripes and then the areas around it, leaving very small gaps in between. Each line that I'm adding is the same width, the same length, but a different direction depending on where I'm painting it. The fur stands up more upright on the forehead. On the left side, it's angled up and to the left. On the right side, it's angled up and to the right. Now these lines really matter. They have to be clean and concise. The white gaps that I'm leaving between them, those white gaps that I'm intentionally leaving, so I can fill those areas in with more lines of light browns, light yellows, and light grays. Now I'm not going to use the same dark gray on the right side as I'm using on the left around these cheeks because the light source is coming from the upper right. That's why I chose a lighter gray brown for the right side compared to the left. Now there's a slight shift in direction on the fur underneath the eye. Now my lines are pointing down and to the left. On the right side, they're pointing down and to the right. I'm also changing how long I make these lines. They should be very short around the eyes, nose, and mouth. Although this can achieve a realistic look, it's very time consuming because now my lines get even shorter because we can almost see skin exposed around the nose, around the eyes, and lips. Now watch me as I apply this pattern of lines along the bridge of the nose. I'm working along my sketch lines, starting on the left side, then in the opposite direction, I apply lines to the right side. Then line after line, as I slowly work in towards the center, my brush strokes become more vertical, up and down. Now here's where I added a bit of variety and contrast. Instead of using line after line to fill in the lighter areas, I filled them in with a more flat layer of yellows, light browns, and some grays. Hi creatives, sorry to interrupt, but real quick, if you're a creative, you love animals, but you're really struggling emotionally, mentally, maybe you're anxious, stressed, depressed, or addicted. That was actually me 8 years ago. I never intended to become a pet portrait artist ever, but it's something that I actually stumbled upon through addiction recovery. So when I was trying to replace toxic habits and I picked up that paintbrush, animal art became more than a creative outlet. It built my confidence, it built my skills, it helped me express my faith and my love for animals, and most of all, it gave me a strong sense of purpose. Seeing how much my art, my imperfect art, brought people smiles, memories, comfort, joy. Now that is something that I want to share with other creatives. So in my Pet Portrait Masterclass, I strive to share that joy and that expertise, all the skills that I built through recovery in this masterclass. So if you want to create your own joy and create pet portraits that stand out in color, quality, and personality, as full of life as the pets themselves, I teach all these techniques. I teach my 12-step pet painting process, even my pet portrait commission process in a calming, low-stress way, even for beginner artists. Pet Portrait Masterclass student Cindy said, "My mother passed away unexpectedly in October, and once I made the time to paint again, the peace and joy of painting returned to my heart. Thank you, Lauren, for your love, your direction, and guiding all of us through the healing world of art." Creatives, if this would bless you or a friend, I have links to the Pet Portrait Masterclass down below, but let's get back to this tabby cat painting. Now, I still definitely have more texture and line work to add below the muzzle, but to help me gauge the value of those lines around the chin, because the light source is hitting it a little bit more, that's why I wanted to go in with the lighter fur areas next. And that's where it gets super fun, because I'm balancing out that structured realism with that more expressive abstract feel. And now you can see I'm going in with my light browns, yellows, and grays now in between the dark gray lines that we added at the beginning. Now the order in which you add the texture really matters. It's why we painted the ears before the fur and the lower chin before the chin, because this is what helps create that form. It's important that you give yourself some grace here. You're going to go over some of the gray lines. You're going to add lines that are too thick, but this is all about building up layers slowly. The more layers, the better, actually. And so we'll go back again and revisit those grays, touch up some of the lines, and add in more lines. Now, another thing to note about order here, on tabby cats, I often see hair that sticks up pretty high on the head in front of the ears. So make sure you get those inner ear hairs done first with much longer, very clean, fine lines, and then add those strands over top the base of that ear. And step 4 is what really brings it to life. Over top the light fur, I add my lightest value, and in this case, it's white with yellow ochre. It's worth the layers. It's worth line after line after line, building up slowly from dark to medium to light. You can achieve this. It really isn't that hard. It's just a matter of patience and slow layering. And now for the body. So this is actually a little bit different technique. I filled in the entire back with a dark to medium gray, and then going in rows, I added slightly longer lines compared to the face with slight gaps in between, using not my round brush now, but my size 0 liner brush. I want to get longer strands, okay? Now again, I really want to stress that this is for a close-up image of a tabby cat where you can make out all the details in the face and that chest area, even the paws, with that back or the side of the body being slightly at a distance so you can't make out as much detail. So I'm going back in with even darker gray behind the head and then cutting that in around the lighter gray yellows that we added for those banded stripes. And speaking of banded stripes, watch as I use my size 8 cat's tongue brush. By the way, I use all Arteza brushes. I've been using them since 2021. I have them linked down below. But because it's kind of like a mix between a detail round brush and a filbert brush, this allows me to create that texture, those rows of stripes, and then in between it, I'll add that marble effect. So I've switched to my size 1 round brush, and now I'm going in with the light fur, using a mix of gray, brown, and yellows again, keeping it more a medium value, okay? So not too dark and also not too light. I will add a layer in between those dark gray stripes, and then over top that, go in with single lines of my light yellow grays, my light brown grays, scattering these very concise, clean lines with wide gaps in between, having the majority of those single lines over top the light fur, but also adding some over top the dark gray stripes as well. This is something that I think artists leave out. Now for those paws, I'm combining techniques. I'm gonna fill in the paws with a somewhat flat layer, but still moving my brush strokes the same direction I see that fur laying, and being consistent with where that light source is. And then again with my dark grays, going in with my size 1 round brush, adding in those banded stripes. Now these are shorter and not all of them completely wrap around the paw. Some start actually mid-paw. And then once that's dried, I'll go back to my liner brushes, my 2\0 liner brushes, to get those fine lines over top those areas, even again over top the gray stripes, but especially over the light fur. And that's using my light yellow grays and with grays with some brown in it. So there you have it, creatives. I hope this one blessed you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'll see you next week for another tutorial. Be sure to like and subscribe if this helped you. Bye.